stick around. What I'm about to show you changes the way you'll ever look at an owl again. Picture this, an owl that can hear a heartbeat under 3 feet of snow, an owl that can drop out of the sky without making a single sound, an owl that, in total darkness, sees more of the world than you ever could with the lights on. Now picture that same animal, completely helpless, not at midnight, not in a storm, at noon, under a clear blue ordinary sky. Here's the thing almost nobody talks about. The greatest hunter of the night has a weakness built right into its skull, and it only shows up when the sun comes out. Stay with me, because today we're going into the one blind spot that could end an owl's entire story, in broad daylight. Let's go back to where this animal actually belongs, the dark. Right after sunset, something wakes up in the forest that most of us will never actually witness. An owl lifts off its branch, and here's the part that still gets me every time. You don't hear it. No flap, no whistle of wind through wing, nothing. That's not luck. That's engineering. The edge of an owl's wing is built like a comb, soft, jagged little fingers that break up the air before it can make noise. Most birds punch through the sky. An owl slides through it. Silence like that isn't decoration, it's survival. Because the moment prey hears you coming, the hunt is already over, but the wings are only half the story. Have you ever felt like you're being watched by something you can't see? That's exactly how a mouse feels under an owl's territory, whether the owl is 50 feet up or crouched 2 branches away, because this animal has built one of the most complete tracking systems in nature. 2 enormous eyes, so large they don't even fit in the skull the way ours do. They're locked in place, shaped almost like tubes instead of balls. That's why an owl can't roll its eyes to check what's beside it. It has to swing its entire head instead, sometimes further than should be biologically possible. And layered on top of that vision is a second detection system most people completely overlook. Ears set at 2 different heights on the skull. One slightly higher, one slightly lower. That tiny offset means sound hits each ear at a different fraction of a second. And the owl's brain turns that gap into a 3-dimensional map of exactly where something is moving, even buried under snow, even hidden in total blackness. This is what most people overlook about owls. It's not just that they can hunt in the dark, it's that darkness is where every part of their body works best. Their eyes are stacked with the light-catching cells built for near-zero visibility. Their hearing fills in whatever the eyes can't finish. Their wings erase the one thing that could give them away. Put all of that together and you get something that shouldn't really exist. A predator that turns the one condition every other animal fears into its personal advantage. For a few hours in the dark, an owl is close to untouchable. But here's the question that started this whole investigation. If the night is where this animal is built to win, what happens when the sun forces it out? If this is the first time you've heard how any of this actually works, that's exactly why this channel exists. Hit like and stay with me, because it's about to get a lot more interesting. Here's a technical diagnostic. Almost nobody outside of a research lab has ever walked through. An owl's eye isn't just big, it's overloaded, on purpose, with a certain kind of light-catching cell, the kind that's incredible at gathering the faintest scrap of moonlight and terrible at handling anything brighter than that. Think of it like a camera with a lens jammed wide open, perfect for a dark room, a disaster the second you step outside at noon. And because those tube-shaped eyes are fixed in the skull, remember they can't swivel, the owl has almost no way to quickly narrow its focus down when the world suddenly gets too bright. Its pupils do adjust, but nowhere near as fast or as far as an animal built for daylight. There's something no one in history experienced quite like this. An eye so perfectly tuned for darkness that daylight itself becomes a kind of overload. Colours wash out, detail blurs, distance becomes harder to judge. This is the source of the system's one real weakness. The same design that makes an owl a ghost at night turns it half blind under the sun. So what happens when an owl gets caught outside during the day? This is where it gets rough. What if your survival depended on staying hidden, and one loud noise from another bird was enough to point every predator in the area straight at you? Because that's exactly what happens. When songbirds spot a roosting owl in daylight, they don't fly away. They do the opposite. They swarm it, diving, screaming, circling, a warning call that basically tells the entire forest, here it is. For an animal that depends on being invisible, that's close to the worst possible outcome, and because its eyes are still fighting to adjust to the glare, the owl can't track every angle of the attack the way it would at night. It's forced to sit there and absorb it, wings pulled in, eyes narrowed to slits, waiting for the mob to lose interest. Some owls get pushed out of their roost entirely, a storm, a falling branch, a human disturbance, and suddenly they're airborne in daylight with a visual system that's working at a fraction of its normal power. That single gap, a hunter with unmatched night vision, reduced to a half-functioning target the moment the sun comes up, is one of the strangest trade-offs in the animal kingdom. Total mastery of one world, total vulnerability in the other. So how does an animal with a built-in blind spot survive long enough to pass that same design on to the next generation? This is where the story turns, because evolution didn't leave the owl defenseless in daylight. It just solved the problem differently. Watch a roosting owl during the day and you'll notice something strange. It doesn't hide in the open. It presses itself against tree bark, pulls its feathers tight against its body, and narrows its eyes down to two thin lines. In that position, with the right colouring, an owl practically disappears into the trunk it's sitting on. Camouflage becomes the backup system for a vision system that's temporarily offline. There's also a second eyelid most people never notice, a thin, protective membrane that sweeps sideways across the eye like a built-in shield, cutting glare and guarding against injury without shutting the eye completely. A quiet piece of design that buys just enough clarity to react if something gets close. And then there are the outliers, species that broke the pattern entirely. Owls that hunt across open, sunlit tundra, active in daylight far more than their relatives. Over generations, their eyes shifted just slightly toward handling brightness better, trading a little bit of that legendary night power for the ability to survive in the light. That's the real discovery here. The blind spot isn't a flaw in the design, it's the price of being this good at one specific thing. Every predator on Earth trades something for its greatest strength. For an owl, the currency is daylight, total command after sunset, in exchange for real risk before sunset ends and after it begins again. And once you understand that trade, you start to see the whole animal differently. That silent wing, those tube-shaped eyes, that ear built like a natural tracking system. None of it is an accident. It's a complete package, engineered around a single decision made somewhere back in evolutionary history. Own the night completely, and accept whatever comes with the daylight hours in between. So the next time you see an owl sitting still against a tree trunk in the middle of the afternoon, you're not looking at a lazy animal. You're looking at a predator playing defense, waiting out the one part of the day it was never built for so it can go back to owning the part it was. That's the trade every owl makes, generation after generation. A natural cycle, written into the shape of its own eyes. So here's the question I'll leave you with. If an animal this perfectly built still has a blind spot, what does that tell you about every other perfect hunter out there? Drop your theory in the comments. I read every single one. The Owl Realm.